My life was as average as any life can be. Youngest of two children, raised by loving parents, attended school with relative ease aside from the occasional foolish decision that comes with youth. I'm currently pushing my third year of college to achieve my psychology degree. A week before summer break, my brother called and offered to fly me home to see our parents and spend a couple weeks camping alongside him, his fiancée, and best friend. Now, I've known Tim for years, and my brother's fiancée, Maddie, is lovely, albeit too bubbly for my tastes. Still, it did sound nice to get away from it all for a time. I accepted the offer. After summer break began, my brother, true to his word as always, paid for my plane ticket and I landed home in Colorado the following morning. The first few days was spent visiting my parents, relaying my time in college, catching up on events at home, and playing Monopoly. I love Monopoly. Day 4, we met up with Tim and Maddie, arranging supplies and camping location. Luckily, we landed our reservation in Elk Creek. In hindsight, it was poor planning to not have a spot reserved before arriving home, but my brother had wedding plans to worry about, so it likely just slipped his mind. Day 7, we loaded my brother's truck in the early hours, and I followed him in my rusty buggy my parents stored in their garage. Tim rode with my brother while Maddie was with me. I knew what my brother was doing. Quality bro time with Tim and an attempt to develop a rapport between me and Maddie. I understood his reasoning. Maddie is soon to be my sister-in-law and wanted us to become closer. Mind you, I have no qualms with Maddie. It's just that I'm an introverted homebody and she's not. Maddie spent a majority of the ride talking about random things. Movies, events at work, and she's a nurse. TV, outdoor activities, and the list goes on. If silence persisted longer than 5 seconds, she filled it with a new topic. I didn't mind it. I felt that she needs someone to talk to aside from my brother. When she'd ask about my time at school or interests, I'd answer. Discovered she's not a gamer, but delighted to hear about them. Even considered trying a couple herself when my brother wasn't on his PS5. Anyway, after an hour and a half of driving, we reached Elk Creek Campgrounds. A beautiful place, and our spot was located a fair distance from the cabins and other campsites, yet within proximity of a ranger tower for safety. Seriously, if you stood near the south end of our campsite, you would see the tower looming along the horizon. First few nights were pleasant. Tim and I had our own tents while Maddie and my brother shared one. They spent their nights in each other's company and partaking in activities. Man, I had to apply my earbuds those nights because Maddie was very vocal. Day 4 proceeded as normal. Built a small fire to brew coffee, lowered our coolers from the trees, and ate breakfast. My brother then recommended we take a hike, explore the wilderness a bit. All agreed. I mean, what was the point of camping if you don't enjoy the scenery, right? Donning our hiking gear, ensuring we have enough water and snacks, we set forth on our adventure. During our 2-mile hike, we encountered nothing. No animals aside from birds and swarm of insects. I felt it was strange we didn't see any big game. A deer, at least. Shortly after, we discovered a cave. My brother had the bright idea to meander about inside. I, on the other hand, felt that to be a bad idea. What if a bear was inside? Would explain why no game is in the area. He countered that if a bear was around, fish and game wouldn't allow our campsite to be occupied, which was a fair argument. My brother instructed that each of us use our flashlights to illuminate our path while he leads and watches for holes using his flashlight. Despite my feelings, I acquiesced and followed my brother. We dived deep, and for a time, everything proceeded without incident. Admittedly, witnessing light reflect off moisture from stone was mesmerizing. Until the foul stench of death wafted through the caverns. I begged my brother to turn back. But now as I think of it, I believe we were too late the second we set foot in that godforsaken place. My brother played it off, joked like he always does when nervous. First came the stench, then gurgling clicks. It all happened so fast. My brother stood in our light, then pulled into the darkness. His screams and pleas for help swiftly silenced. We fled, near trampling each other as we returned to the entrance. Tim didn't make it out of the cave. Before breaching the threshold, he was dragged back. Tearing flesh and cracking bone echoed around us. Maddie and I rampaged through the wilderness, heavy impacts into the earth close behind us. The shrieks. That harrowing shrieking will forever be burned into my mind. Maddie tripped, and I would like to say that I stopped. To say I saved her like a hero of legend. I ran. I ran until her screams and that damn shriek was far behind me. I continued running until reaching a paved road and my vision filled with chrome and white. I awoke to a beeping EKG machine. My parents sat beside me and, upon seeing me conscious, they wept. I was visited by Fish and Game Ranger and an officer who questioned me. During the interview, which felt like an interrogation than anything, the ranger and cop were interrupted by a man in black looking SOB. They left my hospital room to converse. Shortly after, the ranger and cop returned, apologizing for my loss due to a bear attack. A bear attack? A bear attack? I yelled, half screamed that thing was not a damned bear. The officer asked me to calm down, which achieved nothing but pissing me off more. The officer assured me that memory is likely playing tricks. The trauma of the event, combined with adrenaline and concussion after running in front of a truck, would rattle anyone. I'm lucky to have survived the collision with nothing more than scrapes and bruises. I remained adamant on what attacked us. My parents asked the officer and ranger to please leave. They complied, voicing their condolences a final time before departing. My parents wished to stay beside me, but in my anger denied them. Simply asked for my laptop. The hospital informed me they are monitoring me for one more day. If my progress persists, I'll be released the following morning. I didn't care about any of that. Spent all night looking up bear-related content. How they sound, how they run, how they smell, even more morbid thing like bear attacks. I considered the officer and ranger's words, that perhaps my memory was altered from my traumatic experiences, but nothing matched. Colorado's bear population consists of only black bears. Black bears normally avoid humans, especially groups of them. While black bear attacks have been reported, the only time they attack humans is when protecting cubs or starving. Now, contrary to popular belief, black bear dens are generally clean and odorless. Black bears don't shriek. I replayed that damn sound in my head over and over again, every time my bladder threatened to release its contents. After returning home the following morning, my parents were silent, leaving me to wallow in my thoughts. Thankfully, the spare bedroom was there. My parents were hurting, and rightfully so. I guess they felt it best to not prod me and force me to relive those events. Not like I wasn't already. Days passed. Tim and Maddie's parents visited and were distraught. Thankfully, no harsh words nor blame was thrown at anyone. Just families mourning the loss of their children. Then the news report aired. A bear attack. It was then that I made my decision. Call it what you want. Grief-stricken anger, denial, temporary insanity, but seeing the news and my brother's smiling face across the screen fueled me. I waited until my parents slept and returned to Elk Creek armed with my father's 12-gauge and Smith & Wesson sidearm, along with a flashlight. Miraculously, I managed to hike through the woods without being spotted by campers or forest rangers. I retraced my steps to rediscover that cave. There was a moment that I believed I strayed too far and I'd be lost, but I found it. I found the cave and two men decked out in tactical gear near the entrance. In my surprise, I stepped on a twig. Both men turned, and I was met with the barrels of rifles as they stared me down through night vision goggles. The shortest man straightened and asked what the hell I was doing here. I recognized his voice. He's that same man in black who dropped by while I was in the hospital. He removed his goggles and stared quizzically. The man appeared only a few years older than my brother. 27, maybe 28? He approached me. When gaining distance, the older man barked in order to halt. Shrieking erupted around us. The man approaching me screamed as a mass tackled him, dragging him into the cave before any could react. The older man cursed and grunted as he fell, using his rifle to block teeth trying to rip out his throat. My mouth dried, heart pounding, palms sweating. I dropped my flashlight and raised my Smith & Wesson. 5 rounds fired. I couldn't see, simply aimed at the mass atop the man. The creature yelped, toppling aside, allowing the man a moment of reprieve. Retrieving my flashlight, I shone my light across the beast. Pale, leathery skin, blackened veins, strong upper body and small legs. It didn't possess any claws, but long razor-sharp teeth within its gaping maw. 5 bullet wounds oozed thick bubbling blood. I struck its lung, possibly heart. Its eyes shot open. I squeaked, tripping over my own feet. The beast stood and snarled at me. 3 booms rung the sky in quick succession. The beast's skull erupted blood and it fell once again. The man stood, rifle raised. He extended a hand towards me and while trained on the creature. After I regained my footing, I nearly yelled at him on what the hell is that thing? Initially, he was reluctant in informing me. He relented, and that night I discovered monsters exist. A ghoul. According to him, ghouls can survive for weeks without vital organs such as lungs or heart. They devour humans for nourishment and regenerating damage. Destroying their brain or immolation is required to neutralize them. They can starve, yes, but that takes decades. Ghouls enter a hibernative state until viable prey awakens them. The man ordered me to leave, to which I told him to shove it. He sighed, reached for his radio and discovered it crushed during the assault. He sighed harder. No backup, no means of escorting me without doing so himself. I told him I'm not leaving. I have to kill the things that took my brother. He eyed me for long moments before retrieving the goggles his partner dropped and handed them to me. I followed his lead to the letter. I agreed, unslung my shotgun and followed him into the cave. The smell alone made me sick, made me want to run as the memories flashed through my mind. The goggles helped my nerves, but nothing prepares you for what awaited us. Flesh tearing, bones cracking, bestial grunts. We encountered a chamber laden with a dozen corpses. At its center, a ghoul feasted on the man's partner. The ghoul paused, then turned to face us. I thought their shrieks would forever be burned in my mind, but within the confines of the chamber, my eardrums were scarred. Thankfully, its shriek was short-lived. The beast toppled with 3 new holes in its skull. Frankly, gunfire pales in comparison to a ghoul's shriek. The man approached his partner, and the young man wheezed. Somehow, he still lived with his entrails and ribs ripped out. The older man cursed and held his partner's hand. Pulling his sidearm, he ended his partner's misery. I searched for my brother. A part of me needed closure. The other part wished I never set foot there because I found him. half-eaten and broken beyond measure. His lifeless eyes stared into mine, and I wept. My sorrow ended as my head pounded when another shriek reverberated through the cavern. I can't explain what I felt in that moment. Fear, yes, but mixed with rage, sorrow, perhaps even vengeance. When I faced the cavern's entrance, all I wanted was that ghoul's death. It charged, and my body reacted without thought. As it leapt, I raised my shotgun, firing a slug into its chest. It squealed, writhing atop the cavern floor. Racking another slug, I planted my foot into its ribs and fired. Its head exploded. Blood, bone, and brain matter covered the floor, some of which coated my jeans. It was then I noticed how small the ghoul was compared to the others. The man approached, examined it, and swore once again. He didn't elaborate, simply walked towards the entrance at a brisk pace. I followed out of fear to be alone if another attacked. We went deeper, and the smell became unbearable. Entering another cavern, I wished for a stronger stomach. As my vision witnessed the scene, I vomited. A ghoul lay on its side, groaning as its bloated stomach undulated and bled from a gaping hole. The man explained when ghouls procreate, their young behave like some sharks. Most are devoured. Only the strongest survive. He reached into the pockets of his vest, retrieving 2 plastic vials filled with dark liquid. He twisted them and the liquid brightened. Tossing the vials at the ghoul, he raised his rifle and waited. I removed my goggles as bright flash threatened to blind me. Fire, burning flesh, and screams enveloped my senses. The ghoul flailed, attempting to flee, but its compromised state proved that futile. Its stomach ruptured. 2 adolescent ghouls rampaged towards us and retorted with rounds destroying their brains. The man waited with rifle raised until no offspring joined their siblings and their mother fell silent. I don't remember what happened after that. Next thing I can recall is sitting in a diner across the man as sunrise kissed the sky. We ate in silence until he slid a card towards me, stating that I handled myself well, and if interested, a job is offered. And that's how— Nice! I jumped, my pen leaving a long streak across the page of my journal. Sorry, Murphy, I answered. Senior Agent Murphy scowled at me through our car's passenger window. Just writing, I'm almost done. 5 minutes, Murphy said tersely. I nodded and Murphy tapped our car's roof before walking away. I sighed, continuing my train of thought. And that's how Senior Agent Murphy recruited me into a secret branch of our government. Monster hunters, basically. My life changed overnight, and after months of rigorous training, I am accompanying Murphy as a junior agent on my first case. To Tim and Maddie, I'm sorry for the horrors you faced in your final moments. To Agent Alexander Waltz, I'm sorry. If you weren't distracted by my presence then, perhaps you'd still be here today. To Derek, I wish you could have experienced your wedding, lived to grow old and have many kids and grandkids with Maddie. I love you, brother.